Long time no see, no speak. Welcome to my new flat because I had to move. That's a story for another time. But yeah, I haven't spoken to the camera since moving here. There's been a lot going on. That's the understatement of the century. Yeah, so today I'm gonna share the books that I've been reading recently because I wanted to share how my reading has changed since moving here, partly because of how the accessibility to certain types of books has increased since coming here, and also just how my taste has changed. I'm growing up, the frontal lobe is developing, that sort of thing. So I'm gonna start on the books that I've been reading. And I'm also going to share my favorite bookstores that I've gone to thus far in London. So first up, I want to talk about some of the art books that I have accumulated because I think, as I mentioned, last year I did so much travel and I went to so many art galleries. I'm more of a museum girl. I studied history in undergrad, but I went to so many art galleries and just like being exposed to so many different things, I think your brain just like changes. So I just like uncovered a new love and interest for art. I'm always in Chelsea because I love West London. I'm a West London girl at heart, and I go to the Taschen store in Sloane Square. Is that Sloane Square? No. Is it, what do they call it? They call it like Duke of York Square. It's right beside Sloane Square. Whatever. The Taschen store in Chelsea. I could spend hours there. I love Taschen art books. Absolutely insane. So I got the Bruegel book, and it's very interesting art. It's very like dark. I was exposed to Bruegel because I kind of like, my area of history at U of T was early modern history, and so I really was interested in the Little Ice Age. A lot of his pictures are like shown because they depict that time. I'm hoping to see some of his work someday. There's quite a few in Madrid at the Museo Prado. And then I love Matisse, guys. Matisse, yes, I met Matisse. I first saw his work in Paris at the Musée de l'Orangerie like 3 or 4 summers ago, and I'm a big lover of Matisse. Not all of his work. I don't like the cutout stuff, but yeah. Next up for art books. Guys, are you kidding? Are you kidding? So, story behind Lee Miller. Obviously, I've heard of her from, again, my history classes, but I went to the Tate Britain, and actually I have the ticket. I went to the Tate Britain because they have the exhibition on for Lee Miller's photographs, and guys, my brain, like, I don't know, something happened while I was there. I was there for like 4 hours. I was so locked in on that exhibition. I had my journal out and I was journaling like 5 pages. I was taking so many pictures, I was taking so many videos. I just felt something unlock in my brain. So my aunt also got me this for Christmas, and I've already like bookmarked some of my favorites. I have a postcard of my favorite, but she's naked in it, so I'm not gonna show that online. This one's really cool. It's a bell jar, and I reread The Bell Jar this year, so I was like, oh, this is my absolute favorite. It's an opera singer singing the aria from Madame Butterfly at the Vienna Opera House that I guess got bombed. And I went to Madame Butterfly. That's my first opera I ever went to, and I really, really love it. I'd love to see it again someday, maybe in Vienna. This year, I've been reading, okay, I'm gonna say this year, it's January, so I'm including 2025 into like what's going on right now. But this year, I really got into like Susan Sontag and Joan Didion. They're not connected, but I've been into them. With Susan Sontag, I read On Women last January, and it was a bit hard to get through, but it was quite interesting. It's just not the type of book you can sit down and read for 5 hours. Like, you eat away at it. So for Christmas, I asked for Regarding the Pain of Others, which is similar to her On Photography collection because it discusses how like modern society absorbs and processes images of suffering. This one more specifically is about representations of atrocities, so like photographs of concentration camps and more contemporary images of events like 9/11 or the Rwandan genocide. Very interesting. Very, very, very interesting. I've been telling everybody about this who might be interested. I'm like, guys, read this, read this. Totally would recommend Susan Sontag. Really interesting, and like something that I feel like nobody really talks about because it might seem unapproachable because it's quite, I don't want to say academic, but it's quite like intellectual and philosophical in some ways. I gotta speed this up because I'm yapping too much. George Orwell, I read this Down and Out in Paris and London. I think I bought this at Daunt in Marylebone, but this was, I think, one of the first books I bought for myself when I moved here. I was feeling extremely down and out, not gonna lie guys, like September, October, not really sure what was going on. Don't really have many memories of the first month of me being here. I kind of blocked it all out, but this is really, really interesting. And George Orwell is obviously famous for writing 1984, but this is his memoir of like a time in his youth when he was like working and poor in Paris and London. And I'm not saying my experience was reflecting that, but he was struggling through life as I was when I read this. So yeah. Also, Penguin Modern Classics, my favorite type of edition, the absolute best, and they're everywhere in this country. And then I actually just finished this morning. I've been reading this for 2 months. I bought this at the Owl Bookshop in, I don't know what area that is, but I was with a friend in Hampstead Heath, and we walked from Hampstead Heath to Owl Bookshop to get this. So it's roughly near there. It's in walkable distance. Again, bookmarked and annotated it because what do you mean? What do you mean a man writes such a thing? This was something I loved because I love you. You see, I do love you, you dimwit. My love engulfs you the way the sea loves a tiny pebble on its bed. Here's another really beautiful line. I sink into your eyes whenever I'm looking at you and feel your eyes on me whenever I'm walking around the room. And all the time I am aware, with a pride I can no longer contain, that I am living for you, that I am allowed to do so. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Amazing, 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 amazing. I have read this before. I read this 2 years ago, but I wanted to reread it. Next up, guys, almost done. Intimacies by Katie Kitamura. This has been on my list for about a year, and I finally picked it up in November from Daunt Books Cheapside. I devoured this book in like 2 days. Loved it. A couple days later, that weekend, I was at Daunt Books. I was just browsing, and I looked down and I see all these copies of this book called Audition by Katie Kitamura. It's her newest release. And I see a woman writing within the books, and she's with an employee of the bookstore. So immediately I'm thinking like, oh, is that her? Is she here like signing the books? And I do a quick Google and I like pull up an image of her, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's definitely her. So I kind of like loitered around. And then when she was done and they were just yapping a bit, I went down and introduced myself and said hello, and I asked her, are you the author, Katie Kitamura? And she was like, yes, I am. And we were talking, and she was very sweet, and I congratulated her on her, I think she was shortlisted for the Booker Prize. I think I was congratulating her on that at the time. I can't remember exactly. There was like something like that was going on at the time. And she was very sweet, like honestly, and I was just like, I really loved your work. I just read Intimacies. I'm about to read Audition. Like, So I will forever associate Intimacies with not only Dawn books, but like the fact that I think she's the first author I've ever met, and it was like such a nice memory. Next up, guys, I read There Are Rivers in the Sky by Elif Shafak. I read her book, The Island of Missing Trees. I want to say in 2024, very late 2024. It was definitely in fourth year, and it's about Cyprus, as we know. I write a lot about Cyprus in my academic work, and it's my dissertation topic. So yeah, I've been wanting to read this one for a while. She has so many books that she's written. Very beautiful book, absolutely loved it. Oh, I bought it for myself for my 22nd birthday at Flying Books in Queen Street. So I didn't buy this in London because the British edition has a short cover that like shows the awards it's won, and I hate when the cover is short. I don't like that. So when I was home, I bought this. When I was home for my birthday, I bought this. And yes, I went home for my birthday. Like, everyone was like, you flew back to Canada for 5 days? I said, yeah, I was losing my mind. But one of the reasons why I love this is because a lot of the book is set in the British Museum, which I used to live 12 minutes away from the British Museum, and I'd go there like every day after class, because more often than not I was having a rough day, and going to the British Museum like grounded me and reminded myself that there's more to life than my bad day. There's more to me than my life here. There's more to my interests than what I'm having to study on a daily basis. Anyways, and it talks about these things, la masseuse, and it talks about the day that they were brought to the British Museum like 200 years ago, and in the Mesopotamia exhibit you can see these, and I don't know, it was just like so cool to read like the story about them in this book. And I like was holding this book, and I go to the British Museum and I walk in and I'm just staring at them, and I'm like, the things that people write about are real. This book helped me really conceptualize like how big the world is and how long time is, and how small of a moment my terrible moments are in the grand scheme of things and in the universe, and just how insignificant a lot of my anxieties and like sadnesses are. Yeah, so I really recommend the work of Elif Shafak. I also have The Island of Missing Trees over there. Second to last, I wanted to talk about Joan Didion. I think I read like 5 of her books in the last 3 months. I was just consumed by Joan Didion. Don't know why. Well, I know why. So I read this book. This is the first book of Joan Didion I ever read. This is my first impression of her. And I've never experienced something so profound in my life. I was so deeply moved. It's so weird. Anyways, I'm very interested in grief and how people process grief and the archaeology of grief and like the psychology behind it. This book follows the year after her husband's death. Well, it depicts like what happened when her husband died, and honestly, it's one of the most profound things I've ever read. And I do think it is a very specific book in the sense of, like, I don't think a lot of people would enjoy this book or understand this book unless you've experienced, like, something deeply emotionally traumatizing. I just, like, nobody in my life has died. That's not true, but, like, nobody very close to me has ever died. So I can't obviously relate to like the death of her husband, but I can understand the loss of somebody who is like your whole world, and then having to completely recalibrate yourself to somehow exist without them. There's one line from this book for some reason that sticks with me very profoundly, and that was she's telling this story and she's thinking about how her husband like kind of knew he was dying or he was gonna die soon, and she's reflecting on the fact that she didn't let him think like that. Like anytime he would say that, she would kind of shut it down. And so now that he is he has passed, she's thinking about all those times when he was kind of foreshadowing his own death. And she remembers this like conversation from this text, and the line is, "I tell you, I shall not live 2 days. Only the dying man can tell how much time he has left." There's also a really, I don't know, she wrote, "I remember thinking that I need to discuss this with John. There is nothing I did not discuss with John." Yeah. That encapsulates a lot of my feelings of grief, because there are people that I will never speak to again, more likely than not. And there are people I haven't spoken to in 3 years. And every now and then, I think, I want to tell her about this. I want to tell him about this. I remember I wanted to discuss this with John. I needed to discuss this with John. And for me, my first couple months in London were very much like that, of wanting to share and like, this is what we talked about. You told me about this bookstore. You told me about this book. We saw this together 2 years ago, and now I'm seeing it here. So I recommend Joan Didion. Some of her other work is not as dark, but it's all very like, I don't know. It puts me in a weird mood. And then the last book I wanted to talk about is La Force des Choses by Simone de Beauvoir. And I bought this at the French bookstore in South Kensington. And from what I can tell, it's the only it's the only French bookstore in London. I'm sure that's not true, but I've been on the hunt for Spanish bookstores and French bookstores, and this is the only one that I've found that's very easily accessible. It's super close to the Natural History Museum and the V&A. So if you're already there and you're looking for a French book, pop in. I forget what it's called. I think it's called like La Page. Me and my genders, you'll never catch me doing them right. And I've only just started reading it because, admission, my French is disintegrating. It is not what she used to be. When I was in France and Switzerland this summer, talking wise, I was like blah 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 blah. But only when I'm there does it reawaken. Here, I've never been around so much English in my life, because in Canada, French is everywhere because it's our 2 national languages. Here, it's like 100% English, so I've never been around less French, and I can feel myself, like my brain is melting. And my bookmark is one that I got in Aix-en-Provence. And honestly, guys, yeah, this has been quite the yap session. I don't know, this is kind of fun to talk again. I definitely overshared, and I'm gonna have to edit a lot out. But yeah, as I said, guys, there are some amazing bookstores in this city, and even if it's your least favorite place in the world, like there are people I know who absolutely loathe London. That's not me, but it is a love-hate relationship. This is the love. I didn't even mention John Sandow Books, which is my all-time favorite bookstore here. So yeah, that's everything for now. Bella out.